I think of them as God's belated thank you note for raising their parents. You know, they're charming, they're adorable, and I'm learning a lot off my just 1-year-old granddaughter, Riley. You know, their language that they use at the beginning, very fascinating stuff, like "Oda," which we know as grandparents means all done, right? And you're like a grandparent, you're like, she just said all done. She's brilliant. No, I think she's even more than brilliant. She's a genius. You know, that's the kind of grandparent back and forth that you can imagine. And that would be enough, but she's doing other things that make it really clever. She's taking that language and using it metaphorically. She's crossing boundaries with that language. Let me give you an example. If I try to put on a hat, let's say, she's like, all done, all done, all done. And that basically means, back up, Granny. I don't want that stupid hat with the little ears on it. Yeah, I don't want to wear that. And so that's the kind of stuff you learn. But my big takeaway from that is the use of all done as two power words that I think we can invite into our life to have a better quality of the days. All done. Knowing when we're all done. So an example of a place that I feel all done with is seeking a certain level of compliments or expecting them from, you know, it's not going to happen. So a recent example is I had to get an actual nice dress, which in itself was shocking, but I had to get an actual nice dress for my niece's wedding, and you know, I strolled down Columbus, found a lovely dress shop, found a nice dress, and you know, it was gauzy and kind of floaty, and I was, you know, twirling around like in front of the saleswoman, you know, going like what do you think? Like, you know, she was like, take one more twirl, and I twirled one more time, and I was like, and she goes, you know what? In this dress, your back does not look fat. And, you know, like, here's the great part. I thought that was a compliment. That's the power of all done. I'm all done with the other level of compliments. I was like, that is good. I was walking on air for a week with that. The fact that the dress didn't reveal anything about my back, that didn't even cross my mind. So that's the kind of thing that you can learn from a grandchild. I've also used this same all done in my social life. Has anyone here ever tried online dating? That is the right response, because online dating is the place you go when you're doubting your self-worth to be certain you were right. It's tough. It's very tough. I saw some patterns there. A lot of men like wearing seat belts, you know, it was like their lead picture was a man in a seat belt, and they were sort of going like, I'm a man, I know how to click it, let's do the wild thing. Now, even though my standards are not impossible, you know, the fact that you know how to operate a seat belt is just not really going to get me there. I just don't really think. So, you know, I stepped away from that, but I have found like 2 new relationships with men, and I just want to comment on them briefly. Steve, you know, we're at the beginning, you know, it's a couple of times, so, you know, I don't want to like spoil it or anything, but, you know, quiet, sensitive, incredible hands, and I found myself recently with him, and, you know, there was, was it moaning, was it groaning, I don't know, but it was sort of like, oh, yeah, and, you know, he whispers in my ear, more, and I'm thinking, you know, for $150, I mean, go ahead and do the legs, you know, like, it's a massage, everyone, and Steve is my guy, and so I'm feeling pretty good about Steve. He's a relatively new man in my, you know, portfolio of men, and then there's Douglas, who is in my neighborhood in some fashion or another. I see him often. We spend short bits of time together. You know, the thing with Douglas is happens when you age. I'm never invisible. Like, if I walk down the street, you might go, hey, new haircut? And you know what? I do have a new haircut. Just saying. I'm waiting for the swoop to grow in. That they told me that would happen over the next, month or two. My swoop would grow in. But so he notices things like that. Like the other day, I saw him and I asked, always check in. How's he doing? He's like, yeah, my mom's in the hospital. It's complicated. I flew to New Jersey, walked 2 miles to a train. Kind of hard, and then he flicks my playbill. I had just come back from the theater, and he goes, well, how's the show? And I said, Robert Downey Jr. was making his Broadway debut. This is a new play. Maybe you've seen it. It's a pretty good play. And so he was interested in that, and we had our little chat, and then as he does, he held up his sign, check still delayed, can you help? And these are wildly true stories, so that is kind of the scariest part of all. So, we're neighbors, so we help each other out in different ways. So that's Steve and Douglas. Talking about men makes me think, maybe I will have an Arnold Palmer, if that's something that's possible. In any event, we're so glad you're here. I'm glad to announce, proud to announce that we have an actual concept of a plan for tonight's show. We have some